did that statement stand out to you so much?
Okay, it's my personal belief that I do think there is two things. I think Bill, like at the end of the season, I think he listens to everybody. I think whether he admits it or not, I think he hears us, he hears every station, he hears the news, he reads everything. Or if he's not doing it, somebody else is reading it, and anything that could trigger some sort of like issue, they bring that to him and he reads it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is, Bill. I mean, he's aware of everything. Okay, so I do think that he wants to kind of passive aggressively, set the record straight. But the more important one, I think, is I do think there is this I don't know, like gap that is building between ownership and coach. My personal feeling, I haven't talked to anybody, especially when it comes to winning and how it relates to the amount of money spent. Right? That is how I think there's. So I don't know, like the relationship with Kraft and Bills seems like it's pretty good. But every time I hear from Kraft, whether it's at the owners' meetings or after a loss, or somebody asks him about the season or all the money that they spent, it's always like, I want more return on my investment. I want more from this. Like I want to. It's been X amount of years since we've had a playoff win. We got to play better. The statement that you read yesterday, that was to season ticket holders, right?
Yep.
About, and I keep missing this up, crucial analysis,
critical
analysis.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do. Have you ever read one of those before?
You mean the season ticket holder
season
things?
ticket holders. Have they ever seen a ticket holder, like a memo to all the, hey, listen, don't worry, keep your season tickets. I'm gonna do some deep dive. I'm gonna have some critical analysis, and I'm gonna fix this. You know what? Because I'm spending a lot of money for you guys, and this guy ain't using it right. That's what I heard from that, Gresh. That's why I'm like, well, what's that? That's how I took it.
So there's a couple things here that I think are in play. Number one, spending in general in the NFL has changed a lot in that the actual player costs within the salary cap are covered and then some. So it used to be, and I've talked about this a lot, that you had to take this guaranteed money and you had to put it into a separate account in escrow so that the owners knew they weren't getting their nose over their toes. Now there's so much money coming into the NFL, you don't need that rule anymore. You don't need the rule. And these owners have the ability to write the checks that they need to if they want to. And that's really the hook, is that they'll do it if they want to. In Cincinnati, does Mike Brown have the money to keep Joe Burrow? Yes. But does he have enough money to keep Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and also set that money aside because you got to have it up front? That's the part that I think they could find it if they want to, but do they really want to? And I think that while Robert Kraft has definitely sort of tried to turn up the heat on Bill Belichick in terms of what I've spent, I think with Bill, it's more of you were reckless going into 2021. You were filling needs because you didn't draft well, which, by the way, is not untrue, but it's also not untrue of a lot of teams in the NFL. I've got this in my offense. I have a gaping hole because I can't find a tight end. Let me go buy one in free agency. The Patriots aren't the only team that's done that. Now, the Patriots might have been the only team that signed that signed Jonnu Smith at that level, but Hunter Henry, I think, has worked out fine. I think there's a little bit of sensitivity from Bill on hey, in among the one times you went in and bought a group of players versus just getting in a Dallas Thomas, you missed on a couple of those guys. So, Bill, you're wasting money. You're a spendthrift.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah, nothing's working.
Right.
You can't analyze talent.
And it is, and I think there's some sensitivity from Bill Belichick there on that. They have never been a team that, if you look even in the Brady years in terms of the actual cash spending, they've never been up there. You know why? Because they're well run. That's a part of it too. Normally, the teams that go out and throw a ton of money are like Washington, Dallas, teams like that, where they're trying to cover up their deficiencies. Then there are teams maybe like the Rams, where it was, boy, we're close. Let's find a way to push it over the top. We'll figure out how to spend the money, all that kind of deal. But now it caught up to you. Yeah. And that's the one thing that Bill has forever tried to avoid. So I think this is rooted in Bill Belichick's own self-interest of you people think this, But if you actually did the homework and thought like me, the numbers don't add up.
Okay, or if you know, or that if you were in the inside and you knew about the cost average per year per player, which seems like what they're doing. He's giving you accounting terms and cost aggregate and how they kind of spread this money out, and he makes sense because so maybe that's it. Because I always feel like at the end of the year, like if something bugs him, he's going to make sure he tells you. Now, you may have to sit on it and think about it for a little bit, but he's going to say, hey, listen, all you guys keep ripping me or ripping the team because, hey, we spent, I don't know, $250 million for that 2021 season, and now look what it's done for us. John O. Smith can't play. This guy can't play. This guy's washed up. This guy's no good. So what are you doing with all the money I'm spending? And because I look at it from a Kraft angle, and I know we don't have it, because I remember hearing multiple clips that we used to play regarding Kraft talking about the money spent, talking about the fact that they don't have a playoff win. Now,
it bothers me that we haven't been able to win a playoff game in the last 3 years.
Okay, so that's the obvious one. So that was before this year,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, because you didn't. Yeah, that's right. There was because you had Brady's last year.
That was out in L.A.,
You had Cam.
I think, and when they found out who was going to the Hall of Fame, I'm pretty sure that was that meeting out there.
Yeah, so I do think now, but I'm sure Kraft. But I just feel like there's this disconnect that hey, I'm giving you all this money. You should be doing something better with it.
But that's
I feel
the
like
thing.
you're wasting
Is
it.
Robert Kraft really giving Bill Belichick all this money?
And that's what maybe it's your point. But maybe you're right then.
The overwhelming, to Bill's point, the overwhelming amount of money that is spent is very much within the cap. Now, again, even within the cap, there is that whole cap accounting money spent, all that kind of deal. But Scott Pioli told me this once, and you would know this maybe better than anybody, but I remember Scott Pioli explaining, here's how we view players and like using the franchise tag or something like that, right? So if you have a guy come in on a 5-year contract, you're getting him on that rookie deal and it's X amount of money. And if you franchise a player in that 6th year, they look at it as if it was a whole 6-year contract. It's not we paid this guy and then, oh, yeah, by the way, you massively overpaid him for 1 year because you franchised him.
So average earnings per year would be
bingo
added with that 16-year franchise tag.
There you go.
Okay.
So
that's interesting. So they will take the whole 6 years, even if they franchise it. People say that's an enormous amount of money. Not really, because the first 2 years were cheap. He's an all-pro. He's this, he's that. He's getting us to the playoffs.
So if you look at how they've handled sort of those situations, or even if they would do a buy on a 1-year deal for someone at the end of a contract that might be just short of a franchise tag, people will look at it and say, well, you gave X one for $15 million, and in their mind it's, no, that's just almost a balloon payment at the end of a 6-year window where we've had tremendous value with this player. Most teams don't look at it that way, I don't think. I think there are some that do, and those are the ones that, on the whole, stay out of cap jail, so to speak. And let's go back to 2020. Remember the words from Bill Belichick? It's a reset year. Why was it a reset year? Because you spent a 2nd-round pick on a wide receiver to try to make Tom Brady happy. You ate $5.5 million to try to bring in Antonio Brown to make Tom Brady happy. And instead that became, well, Bill Belichick, you're an idiot. But 2 of those moves are directly made to try to keep the quarterback happy that was there in 2019, because we know the owner was thinking the same thing, and they knew the sand was running out of the Brady hourglass.
Yeah, so to your point, I asked a friend in the business, covers the Patriots on a regular basis. I asked him because when Bill says something like that, I'm like, well, is he right? How do you prove it? Do you have to go ahead and look at all the cash spending, and how did he actually phrase it? So, Terp, can you give it to me one more time? I'm going to hear it one more time. Maybe not the whole version, just the money part, right? Just the good stuff about the cash spent. And let me just react to it real quick.
And it's the same for all teams. What we try to do is we look at it over a time frame. So 1 year is a Polaroid snapshot, but actually there are multiple years involved. And at some point, the reconciliation has to come. So our spending in 2020, our spending in 2021 and our spending in 2022, the aggregate of that was we were 27th in the league in cash spending. So a couple of years were low, 1 year was high, but over a 3-year period, we're one of the lowest spending teams in the league. So had we averaged that out, and in those 3 years, you would have had the same numbers.
See, my thing is like, all right, but do you think that's usually, if you were to say, okay, would you call the Patriots cheap?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's tough because if you spend willy-nilly, you're normally at the bottom of the scale, so to speak, or you're at the bottom of the standings, and it's, like what's everybody talking about in Chicago? Well, you got the number one pick and $109 million to spend. But how much of that $109 million in cap space to spend is really going to go to big-name players, big bonuses, stuff like that? Remember the very first year that Bill Belichick got here? You were in the league, you probably wouldn't. But they went on that bargain basement binge of signings.
The first year he got here.
The first year Bill got here.
Yeah.
Why did they win in 01? Because he went out and signed Bobby Hamilton and Compton and guys like that. Those were all bargain basement buys. That's, to me, the real philosophy of Bill Belichick.
No,
and
me
in
too. But so
2021,
is calling him cheap kind of rude and disrespectful?
I think in his world, absolutely. I think that's why he said,
Okay.
I think Bill Belichick said this more for the narrative than his own.
Okay, well, I'm going to pay it off for you because I asked somebody that covers the team on a regular basis because I don't believe it. I said, what does this even mean? Because I go strictly to, confrontation. I go to tension. I go, going in different directions.
Terp, make a note. Friends of Fourier need to become a thing.
I got him
so
too.
Here we go. He went to an FOF.
Yes, especially in the hockey world. I got lots of FOFs in the hockey world. I'm a hockey insider. You'll find out when it really gets interesting with the Bruins. Here's what he said. Ask the same question. He said, basically paraphrasing what you said, Gresh, he said, I think a lot of people are missing the point on that. Bill really despises the characterization that he wildly spent in 2021. He explaining how he doesn't view this in 1 year snapshot. So of course, he takes a 3-year snapshot and he says, guys, whoa, that's not the way we do business. You guys you're taking a Polaroid snapshot and you're running with this narrative that we went crazy. We don't view it like this, to the Pioli point. No, we view it this way. I would say, all right, overall, if you take the last 23 years and then you average out how much you spend per year in regards to the other teams, where would you be? Would you ever be a top 5 spending team? Would you ever be top 10? I think there could be some years in there that you were.
I bet you 2021 they were at least in the top 12, I would think.
I know, but if you would have to, again, so
for
if a
1
team
year,
goes
you get
crazy,
a spike,
you get a spike.
It's like a
but
stock.
Overall, you would normally be one of the lowest spending, careful, responsible spending teams in the NFL, right? We don't make stupid decisions. We don't make emotional decisions.
They don't sign J.C. Jackson long term. Let the Chargers go do it.
So we don't do that type of stuff. So, and look, it's paid off. Yes, I would say yes, absolutely. The one caveat that I always go to, which maybe it's not fair to keep doing this. Brady allowed you
Correct.
so much freedom to get some low-hanging fruit, get some cheaper contracts, grab some guys that were just, enamored by the system and just wanted to be great, and you coached them up and they had more opportunities and they became encouraged and motivated to play better. And maybe they were always good or miscast at another team. I mean, there's a long list of them. I mean, you go back to Vrabel, you go back to Nikovic. They weren't using Nikovic when he was at the Saints.
Nope.
I mean, there's a long list of them. So I think that probably may be it. But in the end, though, they're always a frugal team.
Now,
financial responsibility.
So let me jump in on your end, and this is where you, in your thought process, might have something. If we hear from RKK relatively soon, and the cash spending, that's the important phrase in there from Bill. The cash spending. If that comes up, then maybe we got something.
Because that's in the end. I hate when these agents. The agents are the biggest problem with these, with like this disinformation The contracts in the NFL are not worth the paper they are written on.
Charmin, brother.
This is not an NBA contract. Nothing is guaranteed. It isn't baseball. Nothing's guaranteed. So you could sign a five-year deal, and all of the players, the only thing we care about is how much guaranteed money you're going to get. Because, you're not going to get the third-year deal. You're not going to get the fourth year. Not a chance in hell you're going to get the fifth year. So you try to find some clever wording to add to the contract that kind of gives you a loophole so you can get paid. Mm-hmm. Like, that's usually what we would do. Just, and there's certain players that Derek Carr was in that situation with the whole injury bonus. The Raiders said, screw it. We're just not going to play you. I could get a hamstring. I could get it back. You're going to have to owe me. Well, the MRI says, you're fine. Nope, my back is killing me. I can't play.
The business of the NFL is very fickle, although Red Sox Geo in the Twitch chat, twitch.tv/Boston WEEI, he says, here's a 3-year snapshot, no playoff wins. Well, there is, and you know what? And that's, so let me just say, I mentioned about if Kraft mentions the caps, the cash spending in a comment. If he rolls out what Red Sox Geo just did on we haven't had a playoff win in 3 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, then that was, if it wasn't directed towards RKK, that he took it, that it was directed to him. And I do think that, here's the thing, too. As people get older, they worry about their legacy. I'm a big wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. Why is Vince McMahon back in WWE? Yes, he's trying to protect what he built and get billions of dollars. But the guy's also worried about his legacy. And I do think, even though he would never admit it, Bill Belichick wants to kind of control that narrative just like he does everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
And that is now going to be, I think, a part of the thinking of 71-year-old Bill Belichick, whereas maybe 60-year-old Bill Belichick with 3 Super Bowl rings of his own wouldn't have given a damn. And as you start to realize, who are going to be those that are going to create the narrative around the history of Bill Belichick? It's going to be media people. It's going to be people like you who played for the guy. And he's got to have some say in there as well. And to me, this is a part of not only shaping some of the narrative, but also giving us a window into how he thinks. If Scott Pioli years ago was telling me, boy, if we got a guy on a 5th year and we give him the big balloon at the end, it's still 6 years. We only paid him X amount of money. That's a part of the long-term team-building thought process down there as well.
Yeah, that's also, when I think about that, it's like, okay, how can I spin this where I make everybody feel good about the amount of money we're spending? No. We don't look at it as we look at it as 6 years.
True.
Cost average it. Look, it's really not that much money.
Yep.
Same guy.
So
Whatever.
It works for him both ways.
Yeah.
It can be a practical and good thought process, but it also is like, well, when you think of it this way, there'll be a lot of people who would just lap that up. It is interesting, and we'll see what happens in the offseason. I know Damian Harris, after the game in Buffalo, was like, well, it's the business of football. We'll see what happens. We'll have to go through some of the guys that could come back and whether they're worth retaining, let alone trying to figure out how much some of these cats could get paid. Now, speaking of paying, can a general – that's pretty good.